Why is the US so upset that Ukraine is hitting Russia's most prestigious and expensive radar sites? Plus, is Russia continuing their advances to nowhere? I'm Paul, US Army combat veteran. Let's talk about all of it. Okay, so I did want to do a frontline update just because I haven't done it in a couple of days. The biggest notes are just kind of continued Russian what you might call piddly advances. You can see here outside to the north of Bakhmut, Russian forces advancing through again an open field, moving into, well, a little bit of this windbreak intersection here near Solovyovo. But again, this is likely in line with Russian tactics, or Ukrainian tactics, of allowing Russians to advance across low-value terrain in order to inflict the maximum number of casualties. We also see a similar tactic play out near Semenivka. You can see here Russian forces, again, advancing across open fields, but clearly on a route to nowhere. This is just, I mean, you feel for these soldiers because it's completely insane to have to make these advances for really no reason at all. You can see here again, this is advancing literally into a giant open field with no cover, especially in the south. So yeah, I guess Russia's seizing territory, and even their defense minister is out here touting proudly that they've advanced 880 square kilometers in 2024. For perspective, you could walk the perimeter of 80 square kilometers in a day if you were brisk enough. So this isn't like these aren't like stunning numbers they're putting up. And with the exception of the city of Avdiivka, basically all of those advances have been into either tiny hamlets that have been destroyed or terrain like this. Okay, this is in a forest. This is actually tactically significant, right? It's increasing Russian penetration into Chasiv Yar, and we know that Russian forces, once they get into these forested regions and into these urban areas, it can be quite effective. I suspect Ukraine may be trying to use this sort of canal here as kind of a delineation. They might be conducting a defense in depth up into this point. But credit where credit's due, this is a real advance that actually moves Russia towards achieving an operational objective in the seizure of Chasiv Yar. But every other one of these sites we've looked at has been in the service of no tactical objective, or it's been tactical gains in the service of no discernible objective, which again makes sense when you look at the fact that, let's see if I can find it here. It's cited way down here. Here we go. Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belosulov. Remember, this guy's an economist, right? And so even ISW thinks he's overestimating Russian advances since 2024, but he claims Russian forces have seized about 880 square kilometers. And again, for perspective, guys, that you could walk the perimeter of in, let's see, 10 and 10, and we will do 17. Okay, that's about 37 kilometers is that you could walk. Let me see if I can give you that in miles. I know we have a lot of you guys in the United States. That's 22 miles, guys. So basically, if you've ever run a marathon, you can run the perimeter of Russia's total 2024 advances, which, bear in mind, guys, it's costing them about 1,000 lives a day. This is not something I would brag about, but this is an interesting insight because this tells us what Russia considers one of its most important metrics for success, and that is aggregate square kilometers seized. And we know that, at least in the Wagner era and in some of these other Storm Z units, that for a time Russia was actually paying them based on square kilometers advanced. So that's why I think you're seeing Russia continue to make these surges to nowhere. I think it's likely a function of the fact that that's the metric that the Kremlin uses for success. And this is a classic conundrum among even tech companies, where when you target a metric instead of the actual end state, you begin to optimize for the metric instead of optimizing for the actual end state. So if you tell people, listen, our goal, let's say you're Uber, and you say, listen, our goal is to get more rides, to have more customers and rides. Well, then you have these, instead of being like, we want to make more money, right? Well, then you have this incentive to be like, well, you should do a buy one ride, get a ride free, right? So you lose money, but you're achieving your metric, right? So that kind of gamesmanship, I think, is what we're seeing in Russia here, where subordinate commanders are told, listen, your objective is to increase the total area seized. And when Ukraine sits there and goes, listen, we're only going to conduct limited tactical counterattacks, and instead our focus is going to be on inflicting massive casualties into Russian forces, you end up with this sort of perfect storm where Russia throws personnel into a meat grinder and Ukraine runs the grinder. It sounds grisly because, frankly, it is. And this is, again, Russia believes that it is effectively attriting Ukrainian forces, and it believes that by seizing territory, regardless of where it is, the seized territory is unlikely to change hands. Therefore, they believe they're strengthening their negotiating position. But ultimately, if you don't, that's kind of true, but not all territory is considered equal. Again, seizing empty farmland or destroyed villages is one thing. Seizing economically valuable mines, again, credit where credit's due. Avdiivka, right, with its coke plant, was actually a place of industrial, meaningful, heavy industry. Bakhmut was similar, not anymore. But you see how these kind of fights, you seize real cities, real terrain, real value economically from a country. It's not the same as seizing an empty farm field. I don't know how else to put it. Now, before we talk about why the United States is so mad at some of these Ukrainian deep strikes, I wanted to just mention the fact that if you're looking for a strategic upgrade of your own, you should check out Strike Gum, right? Strike Gum, made here in the USA, right, with the guys from Liquid Core. 0 sugar, 90 milligrams of caffeine in every piece, 100 milligrams of alpha GPC for further cognitive clarity. It's a refreshing mint flavor. It doesn't taste like a gross energy drink. And now the energy drinks are like $5 a pop at a gas station. A pack of Strike Gum contains all the caffeine of 5 energy drinks, right? 1 energy drink in each individual piece. So if you're interested, check us out, strikegum.com. That's where all the discounts are. But if you're on Amazon, you can just go to Amazon and search for Strike Gum. And of course, a huge thank you to all the folks who've left 5-star reviews for the 5-pack on Amazon and on Strike Gum. It makes a huge difference. It tells consumers, hey, this isn't some sketchy, dehydrated, made overseas energy gum, right? It's made in the USA, high quality ingredients, including natural caffeine, none of the weird lab made stuff. And it costs a little more, right? It eats into the margins, but it's why we're the premium product. I would never put my name on something that I thought was some cheap white label nonsense. So when you guys leave reviews, it tells Amazon and it tells consumers on there, hey, this is the real deal, right? So thank you guys. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the U.S. publicly expressing concern about Ukrainian strikes on Russia's early warning radar system, right? Now, why would this be such a problem? We know that Ukraine has gone after a lot of these strategic assets like early warning radar planes, supply depots, rail yards. Why is early warning radar seen as such a problem? Right? And we saw that 2 days ago, right, a Ukrainian drone operated by the GRU hit a Russian early warning radar system, but they also hit another deep strike radar system in the last couple days. Why is Washington so worried about this? Well, the answer is that the U.S. official says, listen, these early warning radars are not really helpful at detecting the weapon systems that Ukraine uses. But the fear is twofold, right? The first is that the U.S. says, listen, these are radars on Russian facilities that house what they say strategic deterrent capabilities, right? And Russia may say, listen, you are targeting our strategic deterrent, by the way, guys, is code for ICBMs, is code for nuclear weapons, strategic nuclear weapons specifically. So Russia could say, hey, the Ukraine through via its, the United States, Russia could believe, through its Ukrainian proxies, are targeting our nuclear weapon sites, right? And it could undermine Russia's ability to maintain nuclear deterrence against the United States. Essentially, remember, nuclear deterrence has some components to it, right? The first component is you have a nuclear arsenal that's ready at the drop of a hat with pre-planned targets. But the other part of it is you have to have a process for what to do if the enemy launches their nuclear arsenal at you first, a first strike response. And that first strike response, right, can be launching your own nuclear weapons. But there's a problem. There's sort of a conundrum, is that if one side believes that they can behead, so to speak, the enemy, right? That they say, listen, we're going to use our nuclear weapons, but we're going to target, let's say, the Pentagon and all radar communication systems, all the communication systems. Imagine it's the 1950s and nobody's got cell phones. The Russians may say, listen, if we can get the president and the Pentagon and a couple of other key generals who have the authority to make decisions, and we cripple the communications, we can hit the US and they won't be able to give the order to respond, right? We can freeze their command long enough to destroy them. We can also, for example, they say, target nuclear missile bases and destroy the missiles before they ever get off the ground. Those are two things that were a real serious issue in the 50s. Because again, if you sit there and go, hey, the US nuclear arsenal, let's say Russia goes, listen, I think we can take out 90% of their nuclear missile sites, stop them from ever launching. That's enough to sit there and go, we might win a nuclear exchange. And so the solution then is to invest in early warning detection, early warning radars like this one that are going to alert high-level commanders when they see a true nuclear first strike, right? And it's not something you'll be able to miss, because a nuclear first strike, is going to be powerful enough to destroy large portions of the enemy's infrastructure. So it's going to be hundreds of missiles in the air, thousands likely of ICBMs launched at once. So it's easy to detect as long as you have sophisticated, sensitive radars, right? These still have to detect a ballistic missile launched across the world, right? Flying through the sky. So yeah, even if it only detects 85%, they know that a first strike is going to have thousands of warheads, right? So here's the problem. The whole deterrence system relies on these radars working because it gives the other side confidence that they see the truth. They see reality, right? Imagine if you were in a gunfight, right? But you knew that they had guns, you had guns. You could see them. And you said, listen, if they shoot me, I'm going to shoot them back. Right? So as long as you both see each other, right? You see, listen, this guy's got his 6-shooter holstered. I've got my 6-shooter holstered. As long as we can see each other and we see neither of us are reaching for our weapons, we'll stay in deterrence. The problem is, imagine somebody comes up and pulls your cowboy hat over your eyes. Now, the other person, you say, they know I'm blind. They know that they have an advantage now. I don't know if they're unholstering their weapon. So what choice do I have? I can either know that I'm vulnerable and just hope my opponent does the right thing, or I can do what I absolutely have to protect myself, which is draw and fire blind, right? And the fear is that we don't want Russia to feel like they have to make that decision. We don't want to have Russia say, hey, the United States pulled the cowboy hat over our eyes. Are they getting ready to unholster and take out Russia once and for all, or are they just going to sit by and chill, right? We don't know. And we don't want Russia to have to make this kind of decision. So we are trying to tell Ukraine, listen, stop hitting these radars. You don't want to... Again, the U.S., I'm always a skeptic. A lot of haters, a lot of pro-Russian assholes love to cry escalation. They go, oh, striking Russian territory is an escalation. I'm like, no, dude, opening a new front re-invading Ukraine, that was the escalation. That is a logical response. But sometimes there is actually a fear of escalation. And this is an example of that, right? And I think that's possibly why the U.S. said, listen, okay, Ukraine, listen, we will let you. Well, no, actually, ignore that, because Ukraine hit these targets after they already had permission to strike in Kharkiv. So yeah, Ukraine really needs to not do this. Again, credit where credit's due. And the U.S. is like, listen, we don't even think these sites are being used, right? The U.S. officials we don't think these facilities are supporting Russia's war against Ukraine. Again, Ukraine doesn't have ICBMs. They are not going to be detected by these radars. That's not what these radars do. So it could have been an accident. It could have been Ukraine intelligence misunderstanding the purpose of these radars. It could just be Ukraine trying to send a message to Russia that says we can hit you anywhere we want, right? And that there's not that many sites for them to target, right? This is a military site. It's static. It's big. And if you're going to reach deep into Russia, this is a site to do it on. But again, you're pulling the cowboy hat over the dude's eyes. You don't want them to be in that situation. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Hopefully you got some insight from this. And thanks to all the Colonel tier members at combatvetnews.com. We are going to be revamping the site here, but you're still getting 2 videos a week from me. That's not going to change. But hopefully the next month or so, we should have a plan to roll out a redo, and then we're going to expand the benefits, especially for you guys, Lieutenant and Colonel tiers, that really are the ones who enable me to do this every day. Thanks so much. Cheers.